The lights come up slowly, and before you even understand what you're seeing, your heart tightens. A tiny figure stands alone at the center of a massive stage, shoes a little too big, hands trembling around a microphone almost as tall as their chest. The crowd leans forward. Judges exchange uncertain looks. And somewhere between the first breath this child takes and the silence that follows, you realize this is not just a performance. This is a moment that will stay with you long after the video ends. If stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like these deserve to be shared and remembered. The child is only 3 years old. 3. An age when most children are still learning how to form full sentences, when bedtime stories and warm hugs are supposed to be guaranteed. But life did not offer that safety to this little one. Orphaned before even understanding what the word family truly means, this child grew up in the quiet corners of a small shelter, surrounded by caregivers who did their best but could never replace the warmth of parents' arms. Nights were the hardest. While other children cried themselves to sleep, this child would sit quietly, clutching a worn-out stuffed toy and whispering words learned from a kind volunteer who came every Sunday. Words about hope. Words about love. Words about Jesus. Music entered this child's life not through lessons or fancy instruments, but through simple songs sung during prayer time. The melody of "I Have Jesus" became more than just a song. It became comfort. It became a promise. When the world felt too big and too lonely, those words filled the empty spaces with something that felt like warmth. Caregivers noticed that whenever the child sang, the fear seemed to fade. The voice was small, soft, and untrained, but there was something in it that made people stop and listen. One day, a local charity event invited the shelter children to perform anything they loved. Most kids chose dances or short poems. This child chose to sing. As soon as the song began, the room fell silent. People who had planned to clap politely found themselves wiping tears instead. Someone recorded that moment on a phone, never imagining what would happen next. That video traveled far beyond that small hall, crossing cities and countries, until it reached the producers of a major stage known for showcasing extraordinary stories. When the invitation arrived, the caregivers hesitated. A stage like that could be overwhelming even for adults. The lights, the crowd, the pressure, it all seemed too much for such a tiny soul. But when they asked the child if they wanted to sing, the answer came without hesitation. A small nod. A quiet smile. "Jesus will be there," the child said simply. On the day of the performance, the backstage area buzzed with energy. Contestants stretched their voices, adjusted outfits, rehearsed lines. In the middle of it all stood this 3-year-old, holding a caregiver's hand, eyes wide but calm. The judges expected something cute, something brief, maybe even something they'd have to gently stop for time. No one expected what was about to happen. As the child walked onto the stage, a ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Some smiled, others looked concerned. The microphone seemed heavy, the silence intimidating. One judge leaned forward, ready to speak gently, to make it easier. But before anyone could say a word, the child began to sing. The first note was soft, almost fragile, but it carried. "I have Jesus." The voice wasn't perfect. It cracked. It wavered. But it was real. So real that something shifted in the room. People who had walked in with guarded hearts felt them open without permission. The lyrics spoke of not being alone, of having someone who stays when everyone else is gone. Coming from a 3-year-old orphan, those words landed like a wave. Halfway through the song, the audience was no longer watching. They were feeling. Tears rolled freely. A judge covered their mouth, eyes shining. Another looked down, struggling to compose themselves. Even the camera operators blinked back emotion. The child sang with eyes closed, as if singing to someone only they could see, unaware of the thousands of hearts breaking and healing at the same time. When the final note faded, there was a moment of silence so deep it felt sacred. Then the room erupted. People stood. Applause thundered. Some cried openly. Others reached for the hands of strangers beside them. The judges didn't rush to speak. They needed a moment. One finally said, voice shaking, that they had seen talent, skill, and power on that stage before, but never something so pure. The child smiled, not fully understanding the reaction, only knowing they had sung the song they loved. When asked how they learned to be so brave, the answer was simple. "I'm not alone," the child said. "I have Jesus." That moment didn't just change the judges or the audience. It changed lives. Donations poured into shelters. Families opened their homes. People who had lost hope found it again through the voice of a child who had every reason to give up but chose faith instead. And for the child, the stage was no longer a place of fear. It became a place where their small voice could remind the world of something big. As the video ends, you realize why no one could stop crying. It wasn't about a perfect performance. It was about resilience. It was about finding light in the darkest places. It was about a 3-year-old orphan teaching millions that even when everything is taken away, hope can still sing. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the power of faith, love, and kindness, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Because sometimes, the smallest voices carry the greatest messages.